John. we got my friend John with us today, John Frisella, and it's Grace's brother. Dude, you know what? You know what I'm about to say?
I was just about to say it.
Dang. Yo,
that's one of my favorite stories to tell about Mark.
Tell him the story.
Okay, so one day we're sitting here after the shop closed, and I had been doing homework in here all day, and it gets real quiet, and Mark and Grace had let me stay in the shop while they were cleaning up, and I'm sitting at the counter on my phone, and Mark walks over, and he just leans forward with his cup of coffee, and he takes a little sip, and then he just breathes out. He goes, "Man, I got the best coffee ever." And I was like, that's the mentality that I think everyone should do everything with, is just like constantly just convinced that whatever you're doing is the best around.
The crazy thing is I was dead serious, dude. It's like a long day. I finally got a cup of coffee, and I'm like just savoring it. Well, cool. I got John here with us today. John, you're Grace's little brother, right? How old are you right now?
So I'm 20 right now.
20.
I turned 21 in September.
Dang.
So Grace is 4 years older than I am.
Gotcha.
Yep.
How was it being Grace's little brother growing up?
Well, when we were younger, Grace used to bully the shit out of me.
That's what I've heard.
If you watch the podcast with Grace, she sheds a little bit of light on that, but I would say once.
like what? Like give me a story.
I used to be like super into Legos as a little kid. She would just like walk in and just like break them, and she was such like a goody two shoes growing up as well. Like whenever like with school and when my parents were around, so like if I was doing something I wasn't supposed to, like she would call my parents and snitch on me.
No.
But that all kind of came to an end when she moved out. When she and I weren't living in the same house anymore, me and her got really close, and that all of that kind of subsided, and I think of us a lot more as just like close friends now than I do siblings. Like, obviously we still have like sibling tendencies, but I call her a lot more now than I used to, and we text a lot, and whenever I get the opportunity to check in, I usually do it.
From what I can tell, you guys are pretty close, but man, that's hilarious. I hear some of those stories where she would just like straight up tell on you.
Yeah, she used to be the biggest snitch. Oh my god,
she's still like that. She'd be like, Mark, slow down. I'm like, why? It's 2 a.m, but the speed limit is. Grace, relax.
Yeah.
Oh man, you're not breaking any rules if nobody sees. All right. Well, that's so funny because I've heard that Grace was like a goody two shoes and an overachiever, and miss. What was she like? She told me she was like the class president or of her class, and
I mean, growing up, it was hard to not. I mean, obviously, like my parents never played favorites. She always claims that I was the favorite, but like I was always like, I kind of disagree. I mean, Grace had straight A's since she was, in kindergarten. She like, I mean, she was, she got a killer ACT score. She had jobs as soon as she could drive. It was like, I mean, she was just like everything. You know what I mean? Like all the extracurriculars, like captain of the field hockey team. And I really wasn't like that. I was B.C. student growing up and until I got to college. And then, she was always just like, just all like anything I was doing, she was doing like
overachieving
3 times as much. So, but
it's gotta like weigh on you,
Yeah.
I want to hear about like how, like particularly like middle school, high school, like how was that experience for you? Because I mean, Grace has like shed a little bit of light on it, but I don't know. I've never heard it from you.
Yeah. So,
because I think I've heard you say like that you hated high school.
Oh, I hated high school. Yeah, I hated it.
But like,
so middle school, I mean, nothing particular. I was a pretty sociable person. I'd consider myself. I had a good friend group. I didn't have really anything to to complain about in middle school.
Yeah.
High school was really awkward for me, and it was pretty tough because when it came to high school, I had grown up with the same friend group my entire life up until 9th grade. And then when it came to making friends with people in my high school, like I only knew like 2 people going into high school.
So your friend group didn't go to the same high school?
No. We all split up.
Got it.
And it was tough for sure making friends in high school because I was so used to always having the same friends. And I also took a while, like everyone had noticeably hit puberty before I did, so I already looked like I was 10 going into high school, which if you're it definitely makes a difference when you go to an all boys high school and there's just like a lot of grown ass dudes walking around
with
and
beards.
and you just look 9 years old. But so I found it particularly hard to make close friends in high school, which led to like just a really rough patch because high school is definitely one of those just like I think of it as like the core developmental
period.
Part of your life where you're building, the like your social skills and your ability to, take your class serious. And when you get to like junior year, when you start worrying about college, kind of like the reality of how serious you take your life starts to hit. And I just, I was so far behind on all that. I spent pretty much every weekend in high school completely by myself, like the typical like American high school story where it's like, parties and beer and like football games. Like I didn't really have any of that in high school, and it was rough for a while, but I don't regret going through any of it because it really taught me how to like become independent and how to, handle situations on my own.
Yeah.
And so following high school, I decided I was going to go to college. That was like a really hard decision for me. My parents more or less convinced me into it because I just hated school. The idea of school. I hated being around that many people at once. Like I had turned really antisocial because of high school.
Hold on. I want to slow you down before we move on to after high school. So, but like when you describe like, high school as a really rough patch, like in particular, I'm not trying to like pull anything out of you, but I've talked a little bit about rough patches in my life and like how I felt in certain periods of time, and and I'm I guess far enough removed from those periods where I can like reflect and be like, man, I was really this way in that time and I didn't even know. Like have you like looked back on sort of the effect that some of that that isolation in high school had on you and like how you felt during that time, and maybe, the effect that it had on you either at the time or afterwards?
Yeah. I guess, during high school, I really, really struggled with just being open to other people. It wasn't until about my senior year that, I would still say through senior year, I was pretty depressed all from about sophomore to end of senior year. I was going to therapy regularly. The in-school therapist was pretty terrible. I mean, you could definitely tell she was just there for like
paycheck.
Yeah, well, not only that, but when you deal with so many kids like throughout the same day, it's kind of like you're talking to a machine almost. You know what I mean? So that didn't really help. I found a lot of peace in several of my teachers, specifically my there's like a special learning facility offered to kids that have learning disabilities. Mm-hmm. So I got to spend time in there. And the teacher that helped me, her name was Miss Tremmel. I would eat lunch with her every day. Like I would, everyone ate lunch in the cafeteria with each other. And this is kind of what I talk about, like when the crucial moments of like building that bond with your friends, like I just didn't do because I was so like antisocial at this point in my life. I was eating lunch with teachers. I was, skipping class to go like sit in my car. I was, just not, I was trying everything I could to just get myself away from people, because once you kind of miss that foundation freshman year of making friends, specifically in a private all boys school, you never really have the opportunity to do it again because it's so cliquey. And that was really tough. I just played a lot of video games on my own, spent all my hours in my free time in my room. I like I played sports. I played lacrosse up until my junior year, and then I quit because I didn't really like anyone on my team, and it was just hard for me to motivate myself to just go spend time with people. So yeah, I mean, I definitely would say like a lot of it was things I could have worked on myself. Like I'm not one to like blame my situation. Like I had the opportunity. I would just say I was like so scared of putting myself out there for the longest time that it like really I really had some consequences.
Especially when like you don't feel like you're just being welcomed with open arms. Like I'm forcing myself. I don't like to insert myself into anything. Well, it's good that at least you didn't like develop any like self-destructive behaviors, like maybe antisocial, but but for me, I went self-destructive. But okay, so then you went to college, and you know, this is kind of like interesting, but your first year of college, or your first semester, I can't remember, first semester, what didn't really go that well, right? Like, I mean, you made a lot of friends, but as far as school,
so I would say okay, I finally make the decision to go to college. My mom and dad are like, you know, they're so trying to get me to, you know, do that, and I'm not really entertained with the idea. And so my closest friend at the time, I know I mentioned I didn't really have many friends, but the one friend that I always had my entire life was my next door neighbor. And because I didn't have any friends at school, I was going down to Ole Miss, University of Mississippi so much, because he's 1 year older than me. My senior year of high school, I was going down there.
Just to hang out with him?
Just to go hang out with him. And he was really like he helped me make the decision a lot, because if there was one person I was going to go hang out with at any point in time, it was him. And so I spent many weekends in Mississippi visiting him, and eventually I just got so familiar with the school, and it was like my parents were like, what are we doing? Are we doing like community? Are you not going to college? Like, we'll send you to school, but like we just really want you to like, you know, like leave, like get out of the house, because you know, I was just so mopey, and, you know, I wasn't really coming out of my room, and my mom definitely noticed it. My dad worked a lot in high school. He wasn't, he was definitely home, but
I think I've heard your mom and Grace sort of express some concerns about you just being, you know, like isolated.
Yeah, I was so holed up in my room for so long, and it was just like really hard for me to even entertain the idea of going to, you know, school, let alone like a big university. So come February of my senior year, I still hadn't made a decision, and I FaceTimed my friend. His name's Nick, by the way, my buddy, and I'm FaceTiming him one day, just kind of like shooting the shit over the phone, and he's like, have you decided anything? And I'm like, no, dude, like, I don't give a fuck about any of this. Like, I don't care. So he's like, well, dude, just like apply places, because, you know, he's always had like my best interest, and he knew that I hated high school and that I was in a pretty shitty, you know, mental situation. And I was like, all right, like, so the first place I applied myself was just Ole Miss. Like, I just sent an application in. I was like, there, I did it. And so like a month later, I get an acceptance letter, and my parents are hyped. They're like, you know, they're so excited that I finally have, like, you know, made some progress in my decision making. So I was like, you know what, I'll just do it. You know, we'll just do this. And if I don't like it, then we're done. But like, I decided to go, and so we packed up, moved down to Mississippi, and that's kind of the start of my.
That's a big deal, though.
Yeah.
That moment where in life where people, you know, they're rare moments, but a lot of times they're very important moments where they're like, yeah, you know what, screw it. What's the worst that can happen? I'll just do it. And if it doesn't work, then I can always come back to where I'm at now. Like, I think a lot of people lose sight of that. Like, there's almost always an option to come back to where you're at now. Like, so if it doesn't work, like, worst case scenario, you just pretend like you never tried.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. Making friends in college. So once I got down to Ole Miss, I found it really like almost exciting that I had this like brand new opportunity to like completely reinvent myself. And I feel like people should 100% look for that in like everything. Like, if you like make a big move somewhere, or like you like get a new job, or like you're just unhappy with like your current situation. I think like the opportunity to not be the same person you were yesterday is like
It's real.
so freeing. Like it's such like an exhilarating
It's
thought.
amazing.
So yeah,
it really is. Like you can choose if you start a new job or go to a new school or you move to a new city or whatever. You can literally like don't just mindlessly just drag your old self to this new place and then create the same circumstances around you. Instead, take some time. It doesn't take a lot of time, and just recreate the person that you want to be in your head, and then just show up like that person. And to every new person that you meet, that new version of you is literally the only version of you that exists. Like I'm sure there's a lot of people at school with you that don't know that you were like this depressed and you know kind of isolated kid.
With my closer friends, I definitely talked about it once or twice, but like it's really just like it's like it's so nice how little it matters now. You know what I mean? Like high school is so insignificant to my life, and like that period in my life is just like I don't even think about it. Like because now I've built such a strong connection to my friends in college to the point where it's like I will literally travel to the middle of country nowhere, Alaska, to live with them for the next 3 months. Yeah, which is what you're actually doing. Yeah, what I actually do. I guess I kind of forget that people listening to this don't know me personally.
Yeah, so dude, it's crazy because I feel like that version of you at the end of high school, between high school and college, like I think there's literally at least tens of millions of those kids in our country, and they end up like just being the 26-year-old that lives in their parents' basement playing video games and trolling people on the internet. That's what they become, you know, or they become these entitled, you know, angry and bitter and resentful people that we see out in society. And all it took was like a little bit of personal, you know, initiative, like some like, no, I'm going to do something else and see if things can change. And if people, for most people are going to find themselves in a really low spot at least one time in their life where they feel like giving up. They feel like nothing's working. And that's the time when you give up, though, you become that other person. And that's the time where you have an opportunity to make another decision, to give it another chance. And it's just, I think it's so significant that, like, for real, your whole life could have been decided. Well, probably was decided in TBD, but like in that short period of time, is you could have become a loser, or you could have like just become somebody new. It's mind blowing for me to think about and to see it. You know?
I mean, going down to Oxford was, it was such a surreal experience because, I mean, not only was a lot of pressure, you know, moving to a completely new city, you don't know anyone your own age there. It's like you're moving up, like, you know, in terms of studying, you're starting to study things that like you never really knew about in high school. And now my parents were like so pressuring me to join up, you know, to rush and like go through the joining a fraternity. And my mom was like so about that.
That's white people gangs.
I know when Mark found out I had joined a fraternity, he was like, what'd you say? Like, that shit's so lame. Which is funny because now you're on the men's group, which is like a small brotherhood of men looking for his help. Yeah, it is. I mean, Jack's over there laughing.
Freaking fags.
I mean... Okay, well, I mean, more or less, I mean, I've been in a men's group and I'm in a fraternity, and I can't say that the values are that much different. I mean, you guys are a group of people with similar interests that are looking to help each other and grow and develop each other.
Maybe
and
we should start hazing.
Yeah.
Who really wants to be here?
Right. But I mean, it is kind of that like. Same, I won't necessarily say like idea, but you guys definitely share elements with a fraternity.
We're gonna get back to that. We're gonna so your parents were pressuring you to rush.
Okay. So I went through. I visited the first house on campus, and I hated it so much because I was still retaining that giant like antisocial part of me of my personality that just like wanted nothing to do with other people. I thought that everyone else was just kind of like like, I don't know. I had developed this like false reality where I thought that like everyone else was like only out for themselves and none of them had any interest in like who I was as a person. And so and it was almost kind of partially confirmed when I went to this first house on campus, and I absolutely hated
Were
it.
they
Like
the,
when I
were they the
visited.
kind of frat boys that I'm talking about?
Yeah. I mean, just like you're very stereotypical, like in a movie, like like American fraternity that just is like the biggest douchebags. So yeah, I absolutely hated it. When I left the house, I called my mom and I was like, "Mom, I'm quitting this shit right now. Like, fuck this." And then she was like, keep going, like, just give it a shot. Like, if you really hate it that much.
I can picture Miss
I know.
Karen.
She was like upset that I.
Just try one more time.
She was like, just try it. And I was like, yeah, she was so upset that I hated it. But yeah, I went through it a little longer. I really connected with people at an event at a bar in Oxford. And I went back to the house. And, that's the fraternity I'm in now. And, I love those guys. And, yeah, I mean, fraternities definitely have like like a reputation for sure, but I wouldn't change it for the world.
Most of them are like that first house.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's so easy to like say it from like an outside looking in, which is totally understandable because like the impression that fraternities give off is like totally douchey, and I totally understand, but yeah, no, I don't regret anything about it.
So college has been different. What are some of the well, what's mind-blowing to me is like you went from, this kid that didn't have any friends in high school, and now you're in college and you're the president. You're not just in a fraternity. He's the prez. And now he's the president of the, I call him the prez all the time. Dave Portnoy 2.0.
Dave Portnoy.
I love that guy.
Yeah, he's a great dude. He's so funny.
But now you're the president of your fraternity in high school.
Yeah.
So like, if you were to look at that kid, John, that was in, high school, senior in high school, John, and then the president of the fraternity, like literally less than 2 years later, John. And like, not only are you the prez, but like, when Grace goes to Ole Miss to visit you and Miss Kara, they like come back and they're always talking about how like everybody knows you. And like you go out and you gotta like be like, oh, I'll be right back. I gotta go shake this guy's hand. Oh, I gotta go say hi to this. And you're just out there. You're like the mayor. Yeah. So how do you go from being, a loner and depressed and isolated in high school to like that version of you versus this version of you? What specifically do you think that you changed, or what changed in you? What did you?
I think it definitely starts with like, not seeing any other option definitely plays a big role in it. It's like, am I just gonna sit in this room for the rest of my life and be like, not talk to anyone and sit in the comfort of my dark bedroom and play video games
in your parents'
sit
house
on the computer in my parents' house? Or am I gonna at least make an effort and I feel like in my own situation I made more than just an effort. I think I completely reinvented my personality and who I was, and I definitely ridded myself of like how much I resented other people and I was so like obsessed with the idea that like I'm gonna have two friends the rest of my life and that's gonna be it, when I was like not really considering the benefits and how important special relationships are when you open yourself up and you are allowing other people into your life. I would just say like it's just not worth it. If I could tell myself something, I'd just say like, this type of life isn't worth it. You know what I mean? There's
being
just
angry at the world.
Yeah, it's just there's just so much more than than to just live that way. You know what I mean?
Like why? Especially when you have a choice.
Exactly.
Like you can decide to just live differently right now and to think differently. Man, that's crazy. Okay, but specifically like, because you said I just completely reinvented myself. I can relate to that. I know what that is like. But like, give me like some specific examples of like how you decided to show up differently. Like the old me wouldn't have done this, but I did this. And like have you thought through any of that? It may be too fresh for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you have.
Well, for one, I would have never gotten on a podcast.
Yeah.
I would have never talked in front of this many people. I was super shy, first off. Like,
Yeah.
I would have never, I don't think I would be. I mean, I've built friendships here at Omen through regularly coming here seeking friendships. Like, if I see someone sitting at that coffee bar, I'm, the old me would have been head deep in my phone, got my coffee to go and bounced, I would have been, but now I come in here, like the coffee's fire, obviously, but it's like, but like I come here because it's like, it's not just a place I come and drink coffee at. It's because like I'll see you, I'll see Jack, I'll see Patrick, I'll see all these, I'll see Swerve, shout out Swerve, and I'll see all these people sitting around that I know that if I initiate conversation with them, I'll have like at least an hour of like, dude, the other night when it was me, you and Jack sitting at that table, we had probably a 1.5 to 2 hour conversation.
Definitely 90 minutes.
Oh yeah, over just like crazy shit. And it was like, number one, I would have never like sought out a relationship with people who were all older than me. Like, not like to make everyone feel old, but like everyone in this coffee shop's like minimum 4 years older than I am. And that's what's like so fun about it for me is, I mean, dude, the old me would have like never even initiated a conversation with someone who I wasn't inside. Like, obviously I kind of talked to you whenever I saw you. But that was just because, you're dating my sister. I would have never walked into a coffee shop and been like, who can I make friends with today? Like,
but it's so crazy. That is a massive thing, though. It's so much bigger. I'm sure, I don't know if you've ever listened to your cousin's podcast. Do you listen
Andy?
to it? Yeah. So for years now, I've heard Andy talk about how he developed his social skills was going to the grocery store, and he had this rule. He would go to the grocery store and he wasn't allowed to leave until he had 3 conversations, like a conversation with 3 different people. And it couldn't have just been like, oh, I like your earrings. Like, oh, thanks, bye. It had to be an actual conversation.
Yeah, with like substance.
Yeah, with substance. And he's talked about that for years and years and years. And now obviously he's uber successful, and he's one of the best salespeople that I've ever met, and arguably on the planet. And it started with that little thing. So like, that's one of those things that I think people hear and they like, it goes in one ear and out the other, or it just goes right over their head of like how valuable that is, of like coming to a coffee shop and deciding to get it for here rather than to go and being like, oh, let me see if, I meet anybody cool today, and just initiating something
100%.
like, it's a massive habit in life. And like, you think that it's not a big deal to do something like that in a coffee shop or in a gym or whatever. But again, I can't, like, this is crazy to me. This is not a long period of time that John was depressed and lonely with no friends. And now he's not just in a fraternity, he is the president of the fraternity, and everybody elected him. Like literally it was like almost a unanimous vote that John's the prez. And it's just, it's crazy to me how fast that happened. And I've seen it, you know, because I've been around through that whole period of time. Okay, so that's one. Speaking of, okay, I will also say that I've seen a big difference in you in even just like the last 6 months, like for real. I would say like that first men's group that you came to. Yeah. I feel like a lot happened then. Like you had already sort of reinvented yourself, but I feel like, and I don't want to speak for you, but I feel like you were like doing like the college experience, sort of the stereotypical way. And I'll let you get into that, but sort of the stereotypical way. And then you came to men's group, and it just seemed like you had a totally different like mindset when you were
Yeah.
going back? You were on vacation actually.
Yeah,
you were on
Christmas break.
you were on Christmas break, and then you're like, man, I'm going back to school, and it's going to be different. So
It is.
it just seems like it's been different. So talk a little bit about like sort of the college experience, first year or whatever. And then, when you came to men's group, I don't even know if men's group was the catalyst. It may have been before that or whatever. But yeah, talk a little bit about that too.
So, okay, after I had been bidded to my fraternity and I'm, starting to actually make friends of my own, and I'm going out and I'm meeting people and I'm developing these relationships, I'm starting to really like kind of ride the high of like this newfound lifestyle and I'm just doing the, just being like a dumbass, what I mean? I'm just like, obviously I'm in school and I didn't have terrible grades, but I definitely could have been doing better. And I'm sitting I'm like every night is just like bar night. It's just like, we're just going to do whatever just cause it's college. Like this is the American, lifestyle when you're a college student, and it's just like, we're going to do everything we want. Cause like when you're kind of in that mindset and you're surrounded by all the people who are kind of like pushing that lifestyle, and you just kind of feel invincible in the sense that like no matter what, like I'm not gonna get in trouble, my grades are gonna be fine, I can do this every night and I'm gonna be fine. Like,
I don't know how people convince themselves
right,
of that. It's a bad strategy.
It's a terrible idea. So I like my first 3 semesters of college, I'm like spending a stupid amount of money like on bar tabs, and I'm just acting like an idiot, and I'm like kind of just and then I came, so after my first semester of sophomore year, Christmas break, I get back, my parents aren't happy with my grades that semester, because for the people who haven't had a college experience, I guess the first semester is always like the easiest.
I haven't had a
because it's all intro classes, so it's like introduction to like some sort of general elective, which is like it's so easy to do good on. Like I was going to the bar every single night my first year in college, and I still had like a 3-4. Like it was not hard to do good. But my sophomore year was when I actually started taking like important classes, and that's when the difficulty definitely ramped up, and my lifestyle and my school workload just couldn't, it was incompatible. So I come back home, I'm kind of just like, my parents are just kind of like, you just can't keep doing this. Like this is bad. Like because I actually did so bad. I feel like
there was a conversation where they were like, listen, if you fail, like we're not gonna keep paying for it.
I mean, that's exactly what it was. And it's so funny because like in the span of a year and a half, I had gone from like so depressed I didn't want to leave my room to the point where it's like now I'm just like partying so much I don't want to go back to my schoolwork and get in my room. Like I want to stay out, but it's so yeah, when I came here, Christmas break
you didn't even want to be here.
I really didn't.
That's what I remember.
I came back to St. Louis and I was like, dude, like this fucking sucks. Like I want to go back and hang out with my friends at school. And so I'm like sitting around doing nothing, just like kind of being an idiot all day. And Grace is like, if you got nothing to do, just come to the coffee shop. And I'm like, all right, I guess. So I kind of show up one day, and obviously I see you. I already knew you, and so I'm just kind of like talking to you and Grace, and I just walk in here and like everyone is talking to each other, and it's so surreal because like I had never been in like, it's just not something you see. Like in here is such a different environment than like any other shop, because it's like, dude, you go to like a shop, everyone is like face down in a book or like their computer, headphones in. But like I walked in here and I literally felt like just the odd one out, because like everyone at every single table was like talking to each other. Like if someone walked in that door, everyone in the shop knew who that person was. And I'm like, dude, what is going on here? Like, so I just kind of made the initiative. And the first person I had talked to, who was it? I think it was Jack. The first person I met in Omen I was standing there getting coffee, and Grace was like, oh, have you met Jack? And I'm like, no. So I just went up and I shook his hand. I think that's the first person I met here. And then, after that, I started talking to like Patrick, and I started talking to like David and Swerve and, all these people that are just regulars here. And now I'm like kind of finding myself in like a community outside of school and in it, just watching how everyone in here is just like so immersed in like this idea of being productive, of just like being better than than you were yesterday. Like everyone is in here developing a website, doing digital, they're all.
I don't even think about it
thing.
that way too. But it's crazy that you say that like everybody in here is like like just going hard, because you're not the first person that's like said that. Like, and it's like you catch a vibe.
Yeah.
But like that was totally unintentional. Like I've as I've built. I've approached building this community in a very intentional way, and I want them to value things like, their health, exercise and social connections and interdependency and community and all these things. But like the hustle, like grind, achieve, the ambition, that was like, I don't know how that happened, but like people literally walk in and they're like, man, everybody in here is crushing it.
I think you sell yourself short, because I think when you are fostering that type of environment, I don't think you do it with intention. I think when people walk in here and they see someone, tending to the people at the counter and you walk in and get a cup of coffee, and the person who's running the whole show like comes up and wants to like personally get to know you, even though you're some sort of stranger, I think that's like creates a sense of like welcome, like just, you feel super welcome here. And when you have all your staff, like you talk about it all the time, you're like, I don't want anyone here that wouldn't go up and start a conversation with someone. So I don't think necessarily that you perhaps started this with the intention of it becoming like a perfect place for work, but I think it's just like people feel so comfortable going up to each other because that's the environment that's being fostered here, that like everyone instantly is starting to like, like mingle and talk. And then now you have people who are developing like real like friendship and professional connections.
Yeah.
And now,
that's what's happening.
I think that's exactly what's going on here. And I think you like killed it in that sense. 'Cause dude, like you walk in here every single day and it's just people are like just doing like, it's like you're just walking into like an office, like everyone is talking to each other, helping each other.
I've seen a lot of businesses like cross pollinate.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like
fire.
I guarantee you, like so many people in one way or another, like maybe indirectly, have found either like a job opportunity or like a best friend or like, or just their new favorite coffee spot. You know what I mean? So I think that like.
Have you ever heard the theory of the third place?
The third place?
It's not a theory, it's a thing. But there's like this thing called like the third place. And they say that, back in the day, like it doesn't apply anymore. The reason why this is coming up a lot in society and in culture is because the third place is disappearing with people working remotely and having, whatever. But it used to be that you go to work, you come home, and then you have your third place. And like, the stereotypical third place for like a guy
is like a bar.
It's like a bar. Yeah. Exactly. Stereotypical third place for a woman might be, I don't know, a friend's house or a coffee shop or whatever. So, and they're saying that now that so many people work hybrid roles or work remotely, that they work at home, and then they home at home, and we're becoming more antisocial, and so we don't have quite as many social connections. So we're not going out and hanging out with people, and so you just spend all of your time at home. You don't even have a second place. Well, when I think about Omen, I think about like it being the second and third place. The place that you want to like actually spend time at, not actually. I mean, if you get coffee here, that's great, but like I want it to be a place that you want to spend time at, not necessarily be like, oh, I have to go to Omen and get a coffee. Like I want to go to Omen just to go to Omen. So it is really cool, and I appreciate you acknowledging that and recognizing it, because it means a lot, and I have definitely poured a lot into it. But so you come to Omen. It's fire. I'm just paraphrasing. So you come to Omen and it's fire, but okay, and this time again, you were like pissed. You didn't even want to be in St. Louis.
Yeah.
You're like, I want to go back to college with my
yeah.
friends. I remember you
Yeah.
literally saying that to me, like, this sucks, man. There's nothing in St. Louis. St. Louis sucks. Nobody's doing shit around here. There ain't nothing to do here.
Yeah.
Okay, and then so keep going.
So I started coming around and I'm meeting people, and then Grace is like, what are you doing on Thursday night? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm probably just going to like sit in my room and watch TV. I don't know, something stupid. And she was like, why don't you come to the men's group? And I'm like, I don't, what even is that? And I was like, I had no idea what it was. I was like, dude,
bunch of fags.
I was like, what are we just gonna? Because I thought it was like a therapy thing at first. That's kind of like the impression I had. I was like, am I just gonna go talk to a bunch of dudes I don't know about like my feelings and shit? I was like, dude, no. And so I was like, just do it. Like, you're not doing anything tonight anyways. Like, just go. So I'm like, all right. So I go and like I that was the night I met Swerve. I met I don't think that was I think that was the night I met like Patrick, and I'm like meeting all these people who like, we're different in age, but like we're practically dealing with the same issues as like just people, you know what I mean? And it's like, although we're in different situations, you know, and
different stages.
Yeah, exactly.
Of life.
Like, different stages of life. I'm still dealing with, these issues in my social life or my or like my mental health, and I'm starting to like kind of, people are bouncing ideas off each other that I had never even began to think about, and that was so beneficial to me. And kind of like what you said earlier about how when I came back, I decided like this is when it was going to change, was like when I was around people that had already experienced situations that I was currently going through, not negative, just like life. And I'm hearing them talk about like what kind of resources they used and like how they, they overcame things like mentally. Cause I mean, I'm definitely undeniably the youngest person in that room, each men's group. I don't think there's anyone.
You
right?
and Little Jack.
Okay.
Little Jack is in the same bucket as you.
Okay.
I love that kid too.
But for the majority,
he's crushing.
Yeah. I follow him on Instagram.
Let's just
he
shout
kills
out
it.
Little Jack.
I follow him on Instagram. He fucking kills it, dude.
Crushing.
He's like, he makes me feel like I'm not doing it.
He makes me feel like I'm not. He's 20.
I know. He kills it, dude.
He's gonna be more successful than all of us. Let's just call it out.
But yeah, dude, it's just like when I'm like going through that room and I'm journaling and people are, in the process of building a business, or they're, like in grad school, or they're, going through these stages of life that I'm not too far away from, but they're ahead of me. I'm like, yeah, like this is like a perfect place to like foster like a good personality and like drive in someone, is like when I'm just sitting around people who are literally all there to leave a better person. You literally have no choice but to be like, like I'm in. Yeah. So that when I was like, I'm going to go back to school different, I go back to school this past semester. I just got back on Friday. And dude, I walked in there and I was like, my men's group commitment was like, I'm going to have the best grades I've ever had in my life. And I did it. I think it was always just, I had that thing in the back of my head, like, I can't come to the next men's group and be like, I've failed my test. I'm not going to be the youngest person in the room, stand up in front of everyone and be like, I couldn't hold my end of the deal. So I was like, that was like a subtle motivation, like a subconscious thing that was like constantly motivating me. But like, dude, from that, like, I started talking to my professors more, and, I got in touch with like different campus resources, and, now I have, like I have people like friends in different offices, and, it's like literally it only benefits you to like, just go out there and like try to be the best. Like, I think of it like I picked one thing that was like a very hard task, like getting your grades up. Specifically, I had pretty bad grades before, but I got really good grades this semester, but like in the process of like constantly going to the library and like constantly going to like, like my teacher's hours out of class, and, just going to like all these places, I made like so many new connections, and I made like, it's so I feel like that's kind of similar to your situation with like, you opened a coffee shop and now you have like, I mean, I don't I know you pretty personally, but I don't know. Like, I would assume that like your core friend group kind of came from the coffee shop, and it's like you've started all these like things on the side, like men's group, and there's a Bible study going on, and it's like you just I think it's a byproduct of your drive to just like build the perfect coffee shop. You know what I mean?
It is. It is. You go all in on something that actually matters. But okay, so. And there's so many fruit that comes from it, and it's not easy. Like, I'm sure that getting the best grades you've ever gotten was not easy. I'm sure it was annoying at times. I'm sure you had to make sacrifices, even lifestyle changes. Like, I'm sure you're not at the bar getting drunk every night, anymore. And that is one of the things that I think is even more impressive and significant than going from, senior in high school John to now, president of the fraternity, is like you're the quote unquote cool guy. Like, you're the coolest guy in the house. You're the prez, and you're the one that everybody looks up to. That's why they elected you. Like, I know enough about leadership and following that when people sign up to follow you, it's significant, right? And so you go from that, but now you're making it cool to get good grades and to try hard in school. You're making it cool to not drink every night. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, to be like, nah, dude, like, I'm gonna, I'm good. Like, to have a bottle of water at the party rather than, doing a keg stand.
And I was heavily inspired, by the way, of Mark's pledge to do a year sober. That was a big part of it, and I don't think I've ever told him that.
Was that the meeting?
That was the
meeting.
You
came to 2.
I could only make it to 2 because they're bi-weekly, and my Christmas break was only 4 weeks. Oh, I say only 4 weeks. That's a long time, but Mark made a pledge to go the entire year sober. Have you said this on the podcast before?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so.
So he made a pledge to go the entire year sober, and that, obviously I didn't go the year sober, but that was a huge thing, is because Mark, big, leader of a big community, is making this pledge that probably is not particularly easy for you.
No.
But so I was like,
I haven't gone a year sober since I was 15.
Yeah. See, so I was like, I can do something similar. Granted, I'm not gonna give myself too much credit because I definitely didn't do what you did, but I used that as a foundation. I was like, if Mark's gonna lead a community and be sober-minded and still, so I thought, I'm gonna do something. I'm just gonna make sure that
you're gonna scale back.
Yeah, that's kind of the term I'm looking for. So I think it really benefited specifically my friend group, because they don't do it as much anymore, but I think the fraternity as a whole, because the fraternity as a whole is 192 people. Yeah. So it's a lot of people to be able to directly influence, and I'm not saying that to brag. I'm so grateful for the opportunity, because I've never in my life been able to, have this. Yeah, lead. I've never been a leader, and then now I get to be the. It's crazy. I get to lead.
It's crazy. It's crazy how life happens. It really is. So I've told. I don't know if I've told this story on this podcast. I know that I've at least told you, because you brought it up to me, but I may have told it on podcast. But there's this stupid thing that comes to my mind. But when I was in prison, everybody does this stupid gangster handshake. And when I decided to show up as somebody new, I decided the new version of me wasn't gonna I wasn't gonna do that. I stopped swearing. There's a lot of surface level changes that I made that just reminded me no, the old version of me did that. The person that did things mindlessly, that did things just because everybody else did them, that's that person, and you're going to be this new person. And so I started shaking people's hands, a traditional handshake. And it was so awkward so many times, because every guy listening has experienced that, where somebody goes in for a dap and you go in for a handshake, and then it's like, oh, this is, awkward. You get the weird hand.
It's so funny you say this because this happened last night when Mark left my house for dinner. I went to tap him up. He shook my hand, and I was like, now I look like a dumbass.
Well, that's what I did. So I started doing, and in prison, nobody, like not a soul shakes your hand normally. Like nobody. It's not a thing that people do. And so I would do that, and I would do it, and I would make it awkward every freaking time. And nobody adapt. In the beginning, it was just awkward, and nobody would change because like they felt weird doing it. So they were like, I'm not gonna do that, loser shit, you know. So eventually, though, like I kind of, everybody's heard portions of the story, but I stayed the path, right? I stayed the course. I went through this period where like I was like the loser, and everybody would try to like knock me off my square and pick fights with me and make fun of me and all these things. But eventually, when they realized that like I wasn't gonna budge, like people, the level of respect that I got was unlike anything that I had ever experienced before. Like, and then I would have like these gangster dudes that were like the leaders of the prison. They would come, and when they would walk up to me, they would shake my hand. Like they knew, like they adjusted the way that they showed up to the way that I showed up, to my standards. And I didn't, obviously I didn't force anybody to do that. It just naturally happened because of the conviction with which I showed up. And I also think that it's because of the fruit. Like people can see, like your grades are getting better, you're getting more social connections, you're happier, you're, whatever it is, you're more inspired, you're more driven, the fruit is there, and people can see the fruit. And I'm sure that you've been tempted. I'm sure that people, try to get you to drink when, you're like, no, I'm not going to drink tonight, or whatever, try to get you to do other stuff. But it's like, okay, but when you resist the temptation and you stay the course and the fruit is undeniable, people then eventually adapt to your standards when they want to hang out with you. And if they don't, then they just don't come around. But like people, when they come around, you will eventually. And so that's what I'm kind of reminded of with the influence that you're potentially having on your fraternity right now is like people are gonna start showing up the way that you're showing up.
Yeah.
And have you started to see that at all?
Oh yeah, 100%. A lot of my close friends used to be like big time stoners. A lot of them are, big time drinkers. And when I ask to hang out with them, they typically know that like I'm not going to be in the, and so yeah, pretty much exactly what you're saying. You see immediately that people are starting to change themselves, in my opinion, for the better. I mean, you know what I mean? Like now when I text people, like I'll still text people to be like, yo, you want to go like grab a beer? It's typically a few and in between, but a lot of them, it's very much like, yo, like I'm headed to the library if you want to come show up with me, or like if you want to go get coffee, I'm about to go do homework. And it's just shit like that. You know what I mean? Just stuff like that I've, been directly inspired by from coming here for sure. It's because like, I'm like, am I just going to be sitting in my room acting dumb all day, or am I going to like go and am I going to give so like when I come back to Omen in the summer, I can, bring proof that I was like,
and you knew that you were coming back.
I said at men's group, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm coming back and I'm going to make sure everyone in that fucking men's group knows I held my end of the deal. Like,
I already know that cause you've brought this up, like not before the show. Before this conversation, John has brought this up several times. He's been like, yeah, I did my men's group task too. So I already know that like, when we go back to men's group, you're going to be like, dude, waiting for me to be like, who kept the commitment they made? I did. Who else?
It's just that Mark mentality. Like, it's just like when Mark says he has the best coffee, like he's undeniably sure. So like I went into the semester, I was like, I'm gonna get great. Like I'm gonna do this. Like there's not gonna be shit that's gonna stop me from doing this. Like
that's fine.
I'm gonna not only be like the best president I can be, I'm not only gonna be the best friend, I'm not only gonna be the best student, I'm gonna be like the best performer in all of these things that I've ever been in my entire life. just because Mark sits at the counter and he's like, my coffee's the fucking best. Like, there's
yeah.
not shit better. I'm gonna make the best coffee shop in St. Louis. Like, it's just like that. It's so inspiring to be, and like people laugh, and it's kind of funny, the way you phrase it sometimes. But it's like, dude, like that mentality is just so like. Yeah. It's so inspiring, and I just like that's what I try to model my.
I like to think that it's infectious, and that's kind of what I feel like I perceive, because I'm obviously not there, but what I feel like I perceive is like you're starting to infect people around you with the same, just the same mentality, which is freaking amazing. Was there anything specifically at men's group that like you can remember like really stood out to you that like was, I don't know, like important, that was significant, that was like, it unlocked something in you,
I would say, I mean, obviously I would never name drop someone, but at the men's group, like I didn't really know what it was going in, and we did the journal prompt at the beginning, and so I was writing down my ideas, and then we did the small group. And when people, like, I wasn't the first one to speak, I think I was the last one in my small group, but like, dude, when people started sharing like really, really personal shit, like, like stuff people probably weren't even telling like their loved ones, but like they were telling me. We just met 2 minutes ago. I just opened my journal, fucking scratched out everything I wrote and started writing like the real shit, because I had wrote down like stupid like whatever answers. It was like, oh, what do you want to what are you not bringing into 2024? I was like, maybe, I don't know, maybe I'll drink less soda. And someone else is like, I've got like an addiction to this, and I gotta make like it's either my life or nothing. And I'm like, damn, like I start scratching out my shit, and I'm like, yeah, okay, maybe I need to like write down something a little more personal, because that's how you get, that's the first step to like getting in the right direction, is like recognizing that like you have these issues in these certain areas. So I was like, yeah,
and admitting them, not just
100%.
To yourself but to somebody else too. Like this is some stuff that I pull from all the stupid programs that I've had to do over my life, but some of the stuff works. And like when you admit it, not to yourself, to someone else, and you'd be like, man, I'm doing this and it's some loser stuff. Yeah, I got to stop doing this. I think I remember, I don't know if it was you or somebody that told me like a secondhand version of the conversation that they had with you, but I don't know if I've told you this, but it made me so pumped up to hear it, because essentially the way that I remember it was, and I'm paraphrasing, but you were just like, man, like I'm just like being a loser. Like, I haven't been doing anything. I haven't been trying. I've been getting, and and they told me that you were like, yeah, it was definitely secondhand, because they were like, that you were saying like, I'm gonna go back and start a men's group at Ole Miss. I'm gonna go back.
I was like dead set. Well, because what happened kind of was, everyone had gone around. I was in a group of 4 people, and they each had said something along, like one of them was like, you know what, I'm like, I got like an addiction to this, or like I can't stop watching porn, or like I'm an alcoholic, and people are starting to say like real shit, and then it gets to me, and I'm like, I'm not gonna read off I drink too much soda. So I was like, I had to really get deep and recognize, and so like it got to me, and I was like, I have a gambling problem, I drink too much, and I'm failing in school. And it was just kind of like, so like, at first I was really scared to say something like that, but it was just like immediately I was just like, oh, like I've never really like said that to anybody, you know what I mean? And it's like,
never said it out loud.
I've never said it out loud. Like my friends back at school were like, I'd make stupid bets on sports or like poker, and they'd be like, dude, you gotta slow down. And I'm like, dude, like it's college, or like get off my case. And so like when I come here, I'm like, yeah, these people are like really recognizing that they have issues, and I'm like, like I can't go a day without gambling. Like I'm drinking every single time someone asks me to go out, I go with them. I've got like a big fear of missing out. Like every bad situation that my friends are in, like I find some sort of way to insert myself into it. And it's like, yeah, like coming here was definitely that like awakening that I needed, when it was like watching other people recognize that they have serious problems with X, Y, and Z. I've got like, it's like I'm not, like when I say it, people are like not gonna judge me. They're like ready to help. They're like, because literally right after I said it, someone else was like, yeah, like me too, and like this is what I do to help. And I was like, oh, like
This is dope.
this is dope. Like I'm not like if I had said any of that, like I'm not saying like my friends would have judged me, but like they 100% wouldn't have been prepared to help me in the style that the people at men's group did. So
Man.
if you're
I'm
in the
telling-
St. Louis area and you're listening and you're
Yeah.
in
If they're here, if they're in St. Louis and they didn't come here, that's they
like,
they
what are
missed
you
the-
doing?
They missed
Yeah,
the boat.
like what are you doing?
But I'm gonna be honest. Your story is actually, and I'm like racking my brain to make sure that this is true. But your story is undeniably my favorite. It's the most precious fruit I think that the men's group specifically has produced, because I've seen the difference in you. Like Jack was kind of a stud already when I met him. He's young. Little Jack's a stud too.
Yeah.
I mean, and I've seen, changes there.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen changes in even some of the older dudes. Patrick is completely different than when I met. But your story, I've seen you change so much. And when I heard that secondhand story of like, yeah, John said he was pumped. He kind of made he acknowledged some things that he was doing, and then he was like, I'm gonna go back. I was so freaking excited.
Yeah.
And I was kind of proud of myself because
Yeah, you should be.
obviously, yeah. And I'm not, and I don't take credit, but when I see like, some of these guys growing, when I see I'm telling you, he's like probably my second favorite. He's completely different. But when I see some of this stuff, I don't ever like associate it to like me, but I think maybe it's because I'm in your life. Like I'm at the house. Like not only this, if truth be told, I have like a little bit of like insecurity about your parents, like not your mom. Because your mom is fire.
My dad.
But, yeah,
my dad.
Yeah, but like but I know that your dad, for those of you that don't know, Grace's dad, John and Grace's dad, former police officer, lawyer, prosecuting attorney, judge, like opposite end of the spectrum.
Raised in an ultra conservative Catholic household.
Ultra conservative, Catholic, Italian.
Yep.
So, I definitely feel like, at times I have this "am I good enough for Grace" like thing, and it, I don't, it's not a soapbox thing. I don't struggle with it, but I definitely feel it. And when I saw you like leave men's group and go back to school, like almost a changed person. You already were a changed person, but I was like, man, now maybe John Paul will see that I'm not a loser. Yeah. You know what I mean?
He never thought that.
No, but that was the first time.
Yeah,
that I was
it was never that he thought that. Like,
no, I'm being dramatic.
Well, okay. To be fair though, like, yeah, you're like definitely different than the old former boyfriends that Grace had, but like in a dope way. Like it's like, my first impression of Mark was literally, I remember, like, I don't know. I found out like Grace was dating Mark, and I immediately just like out of that brotherly instinct go on like all his social medias and like check out what he does and shit. And I go on his TikTok. I just literally told him this story the other day. I admittedly was like a huge Call of Duty player growing up, and like the whole FaZe clan, and like if you're familiar with that, it's like a big thing on YouTube. But like the dude who was like the lead FaZe Call of Duty member commented on one of Mark's posts like, "Oh, this is so dope, keep it going." And I immediately texted Grace and I was like, "Do you know who this guy is?" He's talking to Mark. He's like the coolest Call of Duty guy ever. And I was like, "Mark's so cool." So I'm like I'm not hard to win over when it comes to meeting people, but my dad, he's a bit of a stickler in certain areas, but I mean, it's
that I'm telling you, that was the first time that I was like, man, now maybe JP will see that I'm not a loser. I hope he talks to John. Meanwhile, he doesn't believe anything you say.
I mean, he knows I'm down here like pretty much every day, but he probably thinks I'm just like shooting the shit with a bunch of random people, which is like kind of admittedly what I already do. But it's not like I'm talking about like I don't know.
Nothing.
Yeah. Like me and Gabe today had like an hour conversation about how his beard company business is going, and I was like, yeah, dude, like this is awesome. Like I don't know a single person in college or anywhere else that is in the middle of, starting a business or people that are like running a coffee shop or
and he's got a 9 to 5, and he's like just
man, he's
like,
a hardworking dude.
He's like mixing up beard oils in his bathtub on the side.
If I could grow a beard, I'd totally use it. But
were you I know for real, but I don't grow a beard either. Yeah. Were you as into your faith like when you went to college as you are now? Like I don't know when that got in.
No.
When did that ramp up?
I went to Christian school my entire life, like literally preschool through senior year of high school. College was the first time I wasn't in a like Christian directed school.
Yeah.
And dude, it's something that a lot of people don't talk about is like the idea of going just like through the motions when you're at school. Like, I went to a Catholic high school, and, like you pray when the day starts, you pray when the day ends, like Christianity is some way or another tied in the curriculum for whatever class. And it's like hard to not be burnt out on the idea when you're a teenager who's simultaneously, like doing dumb teenager shit, you know what I mean? So I would say coming out of high school, I would say I was, but not in practice, you know what I mean? Like I hadn't been going to church. Like I was a Easter, Christmas churchgoer, you know what I mean? Like it was like you pray before dinner, and then that's, you're good to eat. Like, you know what I mean? It was like growing up,
I
it's
just
like
eat.
you don't touch the food until you say, like the dinner prayer. And it's like, it's like that, like going through the motions. But like when I got to college was like when we kind of talk about that idea of like, this is the opportunity to reinvent yourself. I was like, okay, I've never gone to church completely on my own accord. Like I've just been pulled in by my parents whenever it's like Sunday, get up, we're going. So that alone is like the huge step forward, is like deciding like, you know what, I'm going to set an alarm on Sunday. I'm going to go to church by myself. And then, through that, I, started going to church on my own because I just felt like it was something you can't not benefit from. Like I've never met someone who's like, I went to church and my life got worse. You know what I mean? So I was like, this is something I'm going to start doing. And so I started doing that. And I don't know, maybe I give myself too much credit, but after I started going to church, a lot of my friends started texting me, and they're like, hey, man, I've been wanting to go to church. Like, I don't know what church I'm going to go to. Like, my family didn't really grow up going to church. Like, so I kind of need help in that aspect. And I was like, yeah, just start coming to church with me. So now I have like a small little group of my homies that we all go to church together on Sunday. But it like I would say that in and of itself is a big part, because my fraternity also does Bible study every Monday. So it's just like I had to kind of like get out of the idea of like church is like just, or like being a Christian is just going through like the motions. Yeah. And at first I found it hard to like simultaneously be living like this party life while also like going to church and whatnot. But then you kind of find out that like it doesn't have to be that party life. Like you can be in a fraternity and not be like an alcoholic or like drug user, you know, like it's like this, that. And so I people are starting to, as time goes on, collectively start coming to church with me. And I would say like that relationship I have in my faith just kind of stems from like, honestly, just like I try to give myself at least an hour a day to like sit in my room and just like read scripture, which is I really started doing my sophomore year. I didn't do it much my freshman year, but I was really consistent with it my sophomore year. And then, it's just like so much. Like now I look back in high school and I was like, I don't know where I would ever get off calling myself
a Christian.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's just like, it's not like what's the term, like a name you just give yourself, like, or a label. It's not like a label you give yourself. It's like
that's what most people do.
Yeah, I know, 100%.
That's what most people do.
It's crazy, and obviously I don't want people listening to thinking I'm like taking this like moral high ground. Like I still am not like
Yeah.
I'm not a perfect person, but I think making those steps is super integral to being
A Christian.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
You've probably heard me say this, but like something that has helped me tremendously is like asking myself like, what would it look like to show up today as if God is real, right? Or another way of asking is like, if you actually believe what you say you believe, then what would that look like?
Exactly.
Like, because for most people, it would look drastically different than the way you showed up today, which means that you don't actually believe what you say you believe. Like, if you really believe what you say you believe, then you're going to have a hard time living the way that you've been living. And I was eavesdropping on you and Jack's conversation. Well, I was part of it, I guess, the other night. And at one point, like you were like literally bringing up scripture, which I think is really impressive. You're like, well, in John it says this and blah, blah, blah. Like just to add to validate sort of your position on certain arguments, you're like saying like, well, yeah, this is my thought, but also in scripture it says this.
Yeah.
And I think that's really impressive. Like I think it is really impressive, and it's funny because I've been a believer for a while, for like 8 years now, but I never really was very familiar with scripture, and so a lot of what I had to say and a lot of my convictions, they really, like, I guess you could label them as opinions. They were nothing more than just my opinion, and the commitment, the way that I've seen you not only like take an interest in religion, but also proactively have conversations with other people. Like Jack's agnostic; he's not even another Christian. So it's like you're having conversations with anybody, and you're bringing up the Bible, you're bringing up Scripture. I think that's it. And then not only that, but you literally said in the conversation like I really want to be able to take scripture and apply it to everyday scenarios.
Yeah, I think that's how everybody should think.
And it's amazing because I feel like that's a version, that's a way that it could look to show up as if, what you say you believe, you actually believe, because you're just literally taking directly from and saying, well, in this scenario, this is what the Bible says, so this is my stance.
Yeah.
And I think that's really, really cool. And I just wanted to, I don't know, bring that up because I remember Jack being like, no, dude, I don't really.
Well, I will say, I told Grace after we had that conversation, I was like, that was the most refreshing thing that Jack was there, because I never
got to get challenged sometime.
I'm never challenged on anything. And like, I was like so happy that we had that conversation, because I was like, dude, it is not every day when there is someone like actively challenging everything I'm saying, because like afterwards, like if he said something, I like mentally bookmarked it, and then as soon as I went home, I like looked everything up, and I was like, he's never gonna get me on that again. So we'll have to revisit that someday. But no, that was an awesome conversation. I'm really glad we had it.
It's good to be challenged, and especially like I don't know if you took this away, but from my perspective and observation of that conversation, like you didn't necessarily gain any ground, but you didn't lose any ground. Like it was an intellectual, sword fight.
It was like
but it's good because you can leave a conversation like that feeling even more convicted if you just take the right perspective on it. And I think that we really did draw out a lot of conclusions, but I also think there was some like maturity, there was some maturing that had to happen, because at the beginning of the conversation, like both of you felt so sure about your positions, but at different points in each of the conversation, at one point, Jack was like, man, I guess, you know what? I guess I have to change my mind about this. And at one point, like, you had to sort of concede that, all right, I guess, that's a valid perspective too. And for me, as I'm the old guy in the conversation, I'm like, oh, look at this.
Well, I was just about to say, it was funny watching you, because you were almost like the mediator of that conversation, and it was almost like kind of funny. Like, I'd say something and you'd be like, oh yeah. And then Jack would say something, you'd be like, well, like you're just like constantly like, oh shit.
Well, I did that on purpose.
Yeah,
Especially because I think, I think maturing is like, part of it is like, I feel very convicted about the way that I think, feel, and believe about a lot of things now because I've had a lot of time to think about them. And I think one of the best, I contributed what I thought was the only thing worth contributing to that conversation, which is like, I've looked at all the same evidence that Jack has looked at, because Jack is an agnostic for everybody. So it's for context of the conversation. So like, hey, the best that I can do is look at all the evidence and decide whether I'm going to believe in it or not. Like I've looked at it all and I just choose to participate in it. But I'm not going to argue with you as if you're wrong and I'm right. Like I'm going to let everybody make their own decision.
Yeah.
But I looked at all the evidence, and for me, I say, I'm going to participate in this. And I think that I don't know, but I think that may have been the first time that you even considered that could be a stance, because and him too, like I said,
I hope I
that
inspired
wasn't
some
the
thought.
first time that I said that to him.
Yeah.
But the first time that I did say that to Jack, he said, "Man, I can accept that." Like, and from that conversation that he doesn't say that. he doesn't say that. He's very smart and he knows his stuff. And he knows the Bible. Yeah. And he knows the Bible, which is, that's significant from an agnostic. He knows the Bible. He's not ignorant of. And so when I said that to him, hey Jack, like, I get it. I get there's a lot of unanswered questions, but like, I just choose to participate in it. He was like, okay. But for real, I remember we were at Menurui. But no, I think it's amazing, and I'm really enjoying seeing you not only become the leader. This is why I wanted to have you on the show. So for everybody that doesn't know this, which is everybody except for you and Jack, when I wanted to have John on the podcast, he was like, "What? No, I'm not coming on the podcast. I don't know. I don't have."
Okay, to preface though, if you watch this show, there is like an immense amount of like really thought-provoking dialogue, and I was just not confident in my ability to like rationalize like the deeper topics that you discuss on the podcast. So I was just like, he asked me like, I already decided, like, you're coming on today, because I was sitting drinking a cup of coffee here earlier, and he was like, hey, by the way, like, you're coming on, like, be here at 5. And I was like, so I kind of like went home and I was like, dude, like what am I even gonna talk about? Like, and then I was just like, hopefully Mark knows how to like ask the question. I mean, I know you know because I listened to this, but I was just like really insecure about the fact that like, I don't know, you have people like from other completely different walks of life, and also everyone's way older than me, so they have a lot more life experience. Yeah. And I was just like, dude, like, what am I even gonna talk about? But I
want you to know that I had you on the show, and I'm sure everybody that listened now obviously realizes, but like I have you on the show not only because like I see, this change that's happening in you, and I think it's good. I think it's worth sharing with people. Like it reminds me of, it reminds me of when I was in prison and I was changing my life and I saw the people around me. Like I became a coffee bean. If you guys have never heard the coffee bean analogy, it was like, this guy who went to prison, similar. He went to prison out of high school, out of college, and he got like 10 years. I think he got sentenced originally to like something like life, like 70 years or something like that. But he goes to prison, and this Muslim guy tells him like, "Hey, there's 3 kinds of people that go to prison. You could be like the carrot. When you put a carrot in boiling water, what happens to it?" And he's like, "It gets soft. They're hard when they go in, and then prison turns them soft." He's like, "You could be like, like an egg. What happens to an egg when you drop it in a pot of boiling water?" And he's like, "It gets hard. So it's soft in the beginning, and then they go into prison and they turn hard." He's like, "Or you can be like a coffee bean." And he's like, "What happens to a coffee bean when you drop it in boiling water?" And he's like, "I don't know." And he's like, "It turns the water into coffee." And when I decided to change my life, I became a coffee bean, and I see you doing the same thing, and it is like, it's amazing because we're in the middle. Let's just be honest. Like there's a cultural shift that's been happening in our country, and everybody that I know is looking around like, man, this sucks, like, and there's this like almost hopelessness with the way that they show up. They're like looking for somebody to fix it, and to instigate a change, and they can't see because neither one of our presidential candidates like seem very hopeful, and everybody's there's all this attention up rather than on themselves, and it's like the impact that I can't overstate the impact that one person can have on the world, on our community, if they just decide to show up like that, to be a coffee bean rather than, being a carrot or being an egg or, being influenced and changed by their environment. Instead, deciding like, no, I'm going to set the standard in every single room that I walk into, and then having your environment, sort of adjust to your standards. And that's what you're doing. And so I wanted to have you on because not only do I see the progress that you've made so far, but also because I believe in you. I think that I tell your sister all the time, I'm like, man, I hope John just comes back to St. Louis because I could use it. I could use a guy like that around here. I swear. I'm like, I hope he doesn't stay in Mississippi because we need John back here. I don't care what he wants to do. Does he want to be a lawyer? Does he want to be in sales? We can put him on the marketing team. But no, I believe in you so much, and what you're doing is you don't realize how significant it is, but I do because now I'm 8 years into this journey. And I can look back, and that's not the longest, but it's long enough that I can look back, and there's a whole fucking ocean of people that I've touched along the way that at the time I didn't realize or whatever. Like, I mean, and I'm not even the most influential guy. Like, I don't have the biggest platform. But it's just individual, touches, like interactions in real life that I've had, and people had whatever, like when you talk about like me standing up and be like, I'm going to do a year sober, and like you taking that and making a decision, that's happened thousands of times where I've just done something and somebody else latched onto it, and then they circle back to me and be like, hey, probably don't even realize, but you're doing that. And so, man, and you're only 20 years old. So that's why I had you on the show. And then not only that, but on top of it, obviously I'm a Christian, and I believe that, the values and the leadership and the wisdom in the Bible, it could be invaluable to course correcting what's happening in our country, whether it's all the hatred, the social tension, the political tension, whether it is all the confusion, the untruth, the gender stuff. I think if people read and embraced, sort of the Bible in the way that you are, in the way like, hey, if this is actually true, how would that look? How do I need to show up today? If I believe this, what does that mean for me today? That's what you're doing it right. And the world needs that example so freaking bad. So yeah, dude, I just want to say thank you for coming on.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
And being open, and that's why I had you on. Like you're doing it. You're doing what everybody in America has an opportunity to do right now, but they're not. They're looking around waiting for somebody else to do it, or they're being influenced by the jackass that's that's in their circle rather than somebody like you. So yeah, dude, any final thoughts that you want to share? Because we got a Bible study that we're trying to catch that's upstairs. Dude, I saw people coming.
Isn't that awesome?
That might be the biggest one.
Dude, that sounded like a crowd upstairs.
I'm just calling it right now. There's probably 70 people upstairs right now.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think we covered all the important topics.
Yeah, it's not like you're active on social media or anything like that.
I'm not. I mean,
Yeah.
you're
Do
interested,
you even
you
have
could
do you even have a profile photo?
on Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I have an Instagram. It's just my name, but
John Frisella.
yeah.
Yeah.
Selfless plug.
Well, dude, I really no, it's shameless plug.
Oh, shameless plug. Shameless plug. Shameless
selfless.
plug. Selfless plug.
Yeah,
No,
I'm just so
that is-
selfless.
That's not the right term.
Nah, yeah, we've got Bible study upstairs right
yeah,
now, and yeah, I mean, okay. Last thing from me then is like, you guys, you know, if you're young, especially if you're young, but even if you're not, like, there's so many things that John touched on in this episode, like, you know, recreating yourself, just deciding that you're if you're not happy with who you are, your friend group, your social circle, your circumstances, your job, you can literally decide to start over, and it's not easy, but but as soon as you decide and you stay committed, you say, okay, you burn the ships. I'm not going back. The only way forward is forward. You can radically change your life in the span of less than a year, which is exactly what happened to John. And then two, you know, just because we're about to go upstairs to Bible study, like, dude, if you're one of those people, did you watch? I gotta bring this up. Did you watch the video that Jack sent us? Fire!
Yeah, it's good.
Fire!
He's a great guy.
Because they asked Jordan Peterson, "Do you believe in Jesus? Do you believe in Christianity? Do you believe in Jesus?" And Jordan almost scoffed at the question. He's like, "Believe? What does believe even mean?
Yeah.
What does it even mean, dude?" That's anyway. So if you're out there and you're calling yourself a Christian, I challenge you to, you know, start asking yourself, man, am I living as if I actually believe what I say I believe? Because let's just be honest, for most of you, the answer is no. Mm-hmm. The answer is no, and it's not easy to hold yourself accountable, to hold yourself to the standard that the Bible calls us to live at. But it is a lot easier when you surround yourself with other people who are committed to the idea of doing that. That's why we have a Bible study upstairs right now. That's why. You know why we have a Bible study? Is because I started going to church, knew nothing about the Bible, and I know myself. If I do anything, I need to do it.
Yeah.
So I reached out to Jan and Nolan, and I'm like, hey, I need you guys to lead a Bible study at Omen so that I can learn and so that I can be around people who are living this lifestyle, because I need the accountability, and it's going to be easier for me to hold myself to a high standard if I know all these people are looking at me, you know? Yeah. So I basically did it just for that reason. It's turning into something really good, but I challenge you guys not only to regularly circle back to that question, you know, am I showing up as if I believe what I say I believe, but also, you know, create a group of your own, of people who are believers, people who do want to know God better, to want to know Jesus better, and want to show up and live like him more, to create that accountability. Because for real, man, it is crazy how infectious that is. Like, I've had Patrick, you know, they call Patrick Deacon Pete now.
Why?
Patrick grew up Catholic, and now he's sitting around talking to Rich all the time. He's the guy that's planning a church. And Patrick's like, and Rich is like, hey man, I need you to help me build this church. Patrick's like, well, if Mark's in, I'm in. Yeah, for real.
So they call him the deacon now?
Yeah,
That's awesome.
He's like, yeah, Patrick, you gonna lead the sermon once a month? And he's like, yeah, call me Deacon P. Yeah. But
that's awesome.
All right, that's it. We got to get the Bible study. But
Yep.
John, dude, thanks again, man.
Yeah,
it's
thank
been
you so
awesome.
much. This was awesome.
Thanks for listening, guys.
Yeah.